You already had some?
Okay. Recording. Okay, I think we are live. Hi. Join us, have a seat. There's recipes. If you haven't grabbed it already, we have the recipes at the front.
Yeah.
And if anyone is watching online, say hello. Hello. Welcome.
Do you have your recipes? Oh, you got yours? You have yours?
I have yours.
You have yours? Okay.
All right.
Oh, you might hear me saying that.
That's okay. We're good. We're live, and we're live here, obviously.
Introduce yourself.
Of course. Absolutely. Very important. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to another Community Connections, and hello online as well. My name is Jeremy Capone. I am the Wellness Chef for Cancer Rehab and Survivorship Program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. I'm joined by always the amazing Amy.
Hi. It's so good to be back again. I'm trying to sneak into the video here.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about processed foods. And processed food gets a lot of bad press, especially ultra-processed foods. And, we wanted to talk about what exactly are processed foods. There's so many different types now. And are they all bad for our health? So today we are going to unpack the truth about processed foods and explore if there is a place for them at our table. So food processing is defined as anything that changes the natural form of the food. Yeah, I know, I realized I need to scooch over and get closer to Jeremy here. So let's start with the apple. So we're going to use the apple as our example of processing. So here we have an apple. It's natural. This is unprocessed, right? So it's still intact, has all the nutrient value, has all its fiber value. Okay, so I'll put that, well, here. No, I couldn't find apple chunks. Actually, I don't mean that. I couldn't find frozen apples, so I got frozen pineapple chunks. Now, this, requires some slicing, freezing, packaging. So we would call this a minimally processed food. So there's parts of it that have been removed, it's been cleaned, but we haven't added anything to it. And if you look at the nutrition facts or the ingredients, it just says pineapple. Okay? So, minimally processed. Then we go to a processed food. So now we have applesauce. So this is unsweetened applesauce. So we know that, it doesn't have sugar added to it. But that's where things get tricky with processing, is that now it's further derived from the original. It's actually all mushed up in here into a sauce. Mushed is probably not the culinary term, but that's the term I'm going to use. And we probably have less fiber in it. The nutrient value is a little bit less, but there's still some good nutrition there. And it plays a role in the diet in that, if you can't have solid foods, having soft foods may be the way to go. So this is processed food. Here you go, my Vanna. And then we get to ultra processed. High chews. They have apples on the front, right? Must be nutritious. But this is what we call ultra processed, in that there's probably very little, if any, of the original apple in this. Let's turn the apple upside down. So what has happened here is that there's been sugar added, there may be additives, very little nutrition, very little similarity to our original food item. So if we look at what we have in front of us, unprocessed, high fiber, lots of nutrition. Ultra processed, very little nutrition, lots of sugar added, not a lot of nutritional value there. But here's where things get a little weird with nutritional science. It's not always that clear cut, right? So some foods need to be processed, so that they're usable. Like olive oil. Olives need to be pressed for use to use olive oil. Milk needs to be pasteurized so it's safe for us to eat and drink. So what we thought we'd do today is, through the 3 amazing recipes that Jeremy has prepared, is see if we can get a better understanding of processed foods. And with that, I'm going to take away all my little samples, turn it over to Jeremy, and our first recipe is cauliflower apple soup with goat cheese. And this is where he's going to demonstrate, I guess he's demonstrating, it's a demo, the use of unprocessed and minimally processed foods.
I thought you were giving me a black box of ingredients to create
we could do that.
with high chews and frozen pineapples. That would have been interesting.
High chews, yeah.
So yes, thanks, Neela. It does have a place, like you mentioned. Through the 3 recipes, we're going to sort of highlight how we can use some of these ingredients. A lot of times it does help in terms of accessibility. We're all about accessibility. With all of our recipes, we want to make it a little bit easier, we want to make it more convenient, right? So we're going to highlight ways in which we can use some of those different, stages of processed foods. So we're making our soup today. It is chilly. These last few mornings have been a quick reminder of okay, fall is here. So today we wanted to focus on maybe some more comfort foods, which are nice. We're going to start off with a soup, highlighting some of our seasonal produce. Went apple picking last week, so got some apples. We have some walnuts, some goat cheese, some really nice sort of comfort ingredients. We're going to make a really nice soup out of it. So we're going to start with our pot here, medium heat, and I've added a little bit of olive oil. And to that, we're going to add some of our aromatics. I've got garlic here, which you can, I'm just going to slice it, but if you want to mince it, you can mince it. You can even leave it whole and just sort of lightly crush it if you would like.
You can smell the olive oil now.
Yes. Any aromatics that you do enjoy, we can add at this point. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sage as well to this. Hi. All right, so the sage, we just got off of Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. So you might have some herbs still left lying around. Sage, if you want to add thyme, any of these aromatics would be super lovely. I'm going to play around with the camera here, so you might get a better look of what we have. Okay, so I'm going to try to do my best to tilt it. No, it's going to be hard to tilt it, but you can get the idea. We have our sage, we have our, olive oil, our garlic, medium heat. And what I want to do is just get a little bit of color on it so that it crisps up a little bit. After it crisps up, I can remove it from the pan because the flavor will be in the olive oil. And then I can save it to finish, so which is what we're going to do. All right. So lovely. To you.
I'm going to try not to be like a dog tracking Jeremy everywhere he walks. It's like, where's he going? What's he doing?
So, a couple minutes on this just to crisp them up. Yeah. Perfect.
So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about onion and garlic. Some of you that have been in our classes know that we love to talk about allicin, which is the antioxidant. So what happens with onions and garlic, once you crush or cut them, so a little bit of processing, it's minimal processing, you are actually releasing an enzyme, and this enzyme helps to create an antioxidant. The antioxidant is allicin, and allicin, research shows, may help with possibly reducing some cancer risk. So this is an example of where minimal processing actually adds benefit to the food.
Love it. Beautiful. All right. So you start to smell the garlic and the sage. online, you probably won't be able to smell that. You can just imagine it. But we're starting.
Didn't use time. Smell it.
Yes, soon enough. Yes, absolutely.
Soon enough,
Yeah.
yes.
So we're starting to get a little bit of sizzling going on here, and I don't want too much color, but once the bubbles stop, then most of the water that is in the sage, not a lot, but there's still a little bit of water in there, and the garlic has sort of evaporated, and that's when it's going to be really nice and crisp, and that's when we're going to want to take it out. Okay. Again, it's doing its job in terms of imparting its flavor. We can leave it in. This is more of like a fussy part if I want a little bit of garnish at the end, which we're going to be a little fussy today. So I am going to take it out. So this is pretty good for me. And let's see if I can zoom down.
You're getting to be a master.
Well, we're trying.
at this.
We're working. Okay. All right. So you can kind of see there. Maybe a little swivel. Okay. We're working on the camera angles here. Doing our best. Okay. So at this point, I can take it out. And most of the garlic, I mean, if you want to take some of the garlic out too, you can do that as well. I'm just looking for the sage leaves, just in a little bit of paper towel. And this will stay nice and crispy, and I can just use it to top the soup afterwards. Okay. And then we're going to return that to the heat, and then add our onion, like Daniela mentioned. So that's going to go in. I have it sliced. You can have it diced. Doesn't matter. We're going to puree this anyways.
The other thing about the onions and garlic that I didn't mention is that it takes 10 minutes for that antioxidant to develop. So it's best to let it sit first before you add it to the heat, because the heat would destroy it. It's heat sensitive. And I'm getting the okay from the doctor of organic chemistry. So.
All right. So now these apples, these beautiful apples, in its whole state, right? What I'm going to do is, this is going to be part of our soup. It's going to add some really, really nice texture. It's going to have a little bit of sweetness as well. We don't often think of apples in our soup, but it is a nice way to, again, thicken up your dish. Also add that little bit of sweetness that will balance out with the savoriness of the dish. So I'm just taking a peeler to it. Again, you can definitely leave the peel on if you want. For me,
I mean, I also like the idea that you're using seasonal fruits in the recipe. So
yes,
we always talk about locally grown seasonal fruits and vegetables. That would be the way to go. May also be a little bit cheaper if you're going to the farm.
Yes, absolutely. Now, when
Orchard, not a farm. Sorry.
farm orchard. When we're using apples, Honeycrisp, Macintosh, these are apples that cook down really nicely, so they're great for applesauce. If you're making applesauce, they're really good for soups as well, because they'll sort of cook down and get nice and soft. If you do want an apple that holds its shape really well, Golden Delicious is one that would really hold its shape. So that would be really good for like pies and dishes where you still want it to be in its sort of solid form. But because I want this nice and soft, we're going to choose an apple that does cook down, and we'll get a really nice puree on it. So, cutting
Sorry,
at the
I
core.
missed it. What kind of apple did you say?
This is Honeycrisp. Honeycrisp, which
That's my favorite.
yeah, everyone's favorite. Everyone loves the Honeycrisp, but this is the time. The most places that I went to, they're actually on sale now. So
Okay.
you don't have to travel to an orchard if you don't want. You can get them on sale, which is nice. We're going to add about 2 apples, just sort of roughly chopped to like big chunks here. Again, this will cook down pretty quickly.
And I see you added a little bit of lemon.
Yes. So, most of like your white fleshed vegetables or fruit will start to oxidize pretty quickly. And again, if I'm prepping it as I go, I don't have to worry about that. If you're prepping in advance, which I did as well here, using the antioxidant from the lemon juice, right? That's going to sort of stop that oxidation, so you don't, get browning on your apples.
And it looks pretty when you're doing a demo. At home, you don't need to worry about it, right? For a soup.
Yeah. All right. So about 2 apples in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and add our first processed.
There we go.
Minimally processed ingredients with our frozen cauliflower. We're a big fan of frozen fruits and vegetables. We highlight them quite often in our classes, again, because of the convenience, right? It's already washed, chopped, peeled, whatever it is, it's already done. A lot of that work is done for you. When prep usually takes up most of the time and energy that you spend in the kitchen. Having an item where all that prep is already done can be very, very convenient. And then nutritionally...
Yeah, and nutritionally, the flash freezing process locks in the nutrition of the fruit and the vegetable that was there at peak of ripeness. So it actually may be more nutritious than a cauliflower that traveled on a truck from who knows where and then sits in your fridge because you forgot about it. So having it frozen is easy. We know a lot of people talk about cancer-related fatigue, and so having something frozen is good. Also, if mobility issues, cutting the cauliflower might be difficult, or here we had the pineapple might be difficult, so having some frozen options is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so back to our stovetop cam. We have our cauliflower, we have our apples, we have our onion. I'll add a little pinch of salt now, and then I can adjust. I can season it again at the end. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of broth to it. I'm using a veg broth. Again, here's where, minimally processed or...
this probably would be more of a processed item,
yeah.
So not minimally, but it required more processing. But again, as Jeremy was saying, convenience is part of it as well. If you have fatigue, what you're going to do is when you buy the broth, if you're buying it, is you're going to look at the ingredients, right? How many additives are there? These days, you can actually find it without added salt, without added fats. So go for those options. And then just know that you're using like apples, fresh apples. You're using minimally processed cauliflower. So you have a lot of good stuff there. So balancing out with just a little bit of something really processed like the broth is okay.
Yeah. So broth in, bring it up to a boil, and then lid on top, and then you can reduce heat to like medium to low, and just let it simmer. Because we're using frozen cauliflower, it's going to cook pretty quickly. So within like 5 minutes, once it becomes sort of soft, you can sort of test it out with either a knife or a fork. I'll get off this shot, sorry. Then you're ready to go. Okay, and we can blend it and serve. So after blending, we have
Magic of TD.
Yeah.
It's not exactly TD. It looks really good. It's white. I'll describe it for you.
Yeah, well, the cauliflower is definitely doing that, and then the apples as well.
So I guess you don't want the apples to brown if you're expecting a pretty white product.
If you're going to be prepping apples in advance, then do your best to prevent them from oxidizing. But if you're prepping and adding as you need, then you don't have to. Now, what's nice is this looks like an incredibly creamy soup, right?
Yeah.
It's the cauliflower and the apples that are giving it that texture. So here's where you can sort of balance out and you have options, right? If we want to add more calories,
Drizzle some olive oil.
Olive oil, you can even put cream.
Oh, cream,
Cream
of course.
into this, right?
My Italian brain went to olive oil.
Yeah, olive oil as well. But if you don't, on the other side of the spectrum, kind of leave it as is, and you're gonna get this really, absolutely like delicious but texturally super creamy soup without the cream. Now,
And the people here, their mouths are salivating, right? Because they know they're going to be tasting this after.
right, so
Cauliflower and apple is also adding some good fiber, so it's going to keep you full for longer. We want to get about 25 grams of fiber per day for women, 38 for men. So even with this creamy look, I'm saying creamy looking soup because it doesn't really have cream in it, you're getting some excellent fiber.
yeah. Okay, so that sage that we had from earlier on top, and again, this is not necessary, but
Even
that
this
little-
is beautifully presented, right?
yeah,
Definitely.
No waste,
Right?
no waste, right?
that little extra step,
Look at that.
you get this like beautiful garnish. I have my little mini spatula.
I was going to say we all need to get a mini
Mini
spatula.
spatula. Yeah. Maybe not
Put it
unnecessary.
on our holiday gift list.
Yeah. For some texture, you can put some walnuts, or you can put some, because it's super creamy at this point. So to balance that out, add some walnuts, and then here's where, again, this is where you have options, but if you want a little bit of richness, because you're going to have that texture, but there is very little sort of fat, just a little bit of the olive oil from the beginning. So add a little bit of richness. I think one of the best pairings with apples is some goat cheese.
And I think it's great that you're adding the goat cheese and the walnuts because we had a lot of fiber. We're getting liquid in that dish, but we didn't have a lot of protein. So if you need more protein, you can kind of add more of that to this dish, right?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's get our
We need
Francis
a
Ford
camera right on
Coppola
top.
shot in here. We'll do our best. I think that's
Oh
we can get
yeah,
a pretty
that
good
looks pretty good.
idea.
Well done.
Yes. So that is the first recipe. I think perfect for the fall
Yes.
season. Our
Yes.
cauliflower apple soup, garnished with a little bit of goat cheese on
Can't
top.
wait to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Recipe 1.
Recipe 1 done. Okay, now we're going into recipe 2. And this is a lemon, garlic, beans with trout recipe. So we're getting like a main meal happening here. And with this protein-rich dish, Jeremy's going to introduce more processed foods. So we talked about unprocessed, minimally processed. Now we're going to talk more about the actual processed food. We're going down that line or trajectory towards ultra processed. And and it can still be part of a healthy diet, right? You want your diet to be mostly unprocessed, minimally processed, but you can have some processed foods. Okay,
Beautiful.
off to Jeremy.
Okay. So.
Do you want me to move anything out of the way here?
To my
No?
little fridge here. No, it's okay.
That's okay.
Side.
I feel like I'm crowding his space, right? 'Cause
Never,
I have
never.
to be so
we gotta
close.
fit into the shot.
We have to fit into the
Very
shot.
important. Okay, so another comfort food for me are dishes with beans. I think beans
Yes.
are a great way to sort of satiate you, right?
Yeah, the fiber satiates you as well as the protein that's in it.
Yeah. I think in terms of comfort foods, a lot of my favorite comfort foods tend to have beans in it. So we're going to make a dish that, a version of this I kind of grew up with, which is greens with the beans. And then we're going to make a couple changes as well. So pan over here, and this is going to be another one pan, one pot dish, which is we love because less cleanup, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is important. Yes. So we have our pan, a little bit of olive oil in there. I have my garlic clove, which I'm going to be adding, and in advance I just gave it a little crush, which you can do just kind of gently with the side of your knife, and it just breaks it open. And so for this recipe, I'm actually going to leave it whole. It's going to do its job. It's going to flavor everything. This also gives me a little bit more control over the garlic itself. When it's very finely sliced or minced, you need to be on top of that because it can burn quickly, right? In its whole state, I can push it a little bit further to really amplify that flavor without it burning. And then if I want to take it out after, I can adjust, right?
And that's great because if you have any issues with gas, sometimes the garlic and onion isn't a problem. So being able to just flavor the oil, take it out is awesome.
Yes. Any other aromatics that you want to add, you can add. Again, fall for me are a lot of these like woody sort of herbs. So your rosemary, your thyme, your sage. So I'm gonna actually add a piece of rosemary to this. You can add some thyme, whatever you want, and wash it, but otherwise just directly into the pan. Again, for those at home, sorry, but for those live, you're going to probably start to smell the rosemary as well. And then any other aromatics you want to add, I've got a little bit of chopped onion. So we're going to put that into the pan. Okay, and then just sort of sweat this down and give it a little bit of color. But I don't need to cook it too much. And the next is
I was reading the reading the labels. Yeah.
These are beans. We're using just white kidney beans here. You can use any beans you want, but again, that convenience factor of the canned bean, it's already cooked for you. So just drain, rinse, which I've already done, and then you can go ahead and add it directly to your dish. Right? So give it a couple minutes or so. We're teaching a class here. We gotta move it along. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the beans directly in. I'm using a smaller pot here, so at the full pan, you have the space. Stir it through. Can you start to smell the rosemary? Yeah, you smell the rosemary? Okay. I'm gonna bring you in a little closer for those at home so you see what we're doing here. And then after the beans go in, we're going to go ahead and add our greens. I'm using kale. You can use any other greens, any other veg that you want at this point. So just washed and really just roughly torn. The big stem in the middle, you do want to remove that. Oh yeah. Well, for those at home, yeah, you'll see. Okay. Put the kale in there. This I'm using fresh kale, but you can use frozen as well, right? So we use frozen in the first recipe. You can absolutely use frozen greens here. Make it easy for you, make it work for you. Again, just a gentle stir. And then a little bit
of use Swiss chard too. I'm thinking that's, yeah. Would you use Swiss chard?
Any greens, yeah. Swiss chard would be fantastic as well. Spinach. And then we're going to add a little bit of liquid. Actually, if you don't mind, take this. We use the can. I'm just going to add some water.
You're just using the can of the beans to add water.
Yeah, you can use some.
I'll start to describe to you what goes on behind the scenes.
So just about a cup of liquid. There's going to be a lot of flavor in here. So water will do the trick. But if you want to use broth, you can use broth as well, right? Thank you. All right, so liquid in, give it a quick little stir, and then bring this up to a boil, which shouldn't take long. All right, and that rosemary, what's nice again, because it's whole, I can remove it whenever I want. If I feel like, okay, that rosemary flavor, which can be a little strong, can be powerful, I don't want that strong, I can remove it, I can take it out at this point. If I want to keep it in there, to leave it a little bit longer, then you can push it a little further. Okay, so we can see we have our dish boiling here, rumbling. You can hear that. We use all our senses when we cook, right? We use it listening to the food. What's it saying? I often talk to the food when I'm prepping by myself in the kitchen.
Hopefully they don't talk. Well, they do talk back. They're rumbling. Yeah.
They definitely talk back. All right. So this is going to be an amazing vegetarian dish on its own. But this is one of my favorite ways to actually prep fish as well. So we're using fish. This is steelhead trout. You can use other types of fish as well. You can use other types of protein as well. And what I love, again, because it's a one-pot dish, I just add it directly on top. So
That
we
is
nestle
so
it in.
cool, isn't it?
And then this is essentially going to steam inside of the pot. So
This is a new one for me. I'm impressed. I'm going to have to try this one at home.
a little bit of salt. If you haven't seasoned the fish before, again, you don't need too much. We can adjust seasoning afterwards. A little bit of salt. I'm reducing the heat now to medium low. There we go. And then if you want a little lemon zest, again, any other aromatics that you like, put in there. A little lemon zest, lid on top, and it's going to steam. Essentially, the fish is going to steam in the broth. So the fish is going to flavor the broth. The vegetables in the broth are going to flavor the fish. It's going to be one happy dish all in one. So cook it just until it flakes apart. Cooking this way shouldn't take long. It should take like 5 minutes. So this from front to end should be a pretty quick dish. And if you're using frozen vegetables, frozen kale, frozen spinach, canned beans, you're using some of these minimally processed.
Processed.
Yeah. That's why.
Well, yeah, but the spinach would be minimally. Yeah.
There you go.
That's minimally processed. This is a bit more processed.
Right, but they're convenient products. Work for you. This dish should be done in no time. So a couple minutes, few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, till it flakes apart. I'll throw it to you.
Okay. So you saw that I went, oh, yes, a question.
You have to catch the fish.
Yes. Yeah, so you have to catch your fish
Yeah.
in advance.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Minimum process.
Yes. That's, definitely, yeah. Part of the process too. Now's the time. Right? This is a perfect time to go fishing.
Go fishing. I tried to see the salmon, but I missed it. Oh, another question here.
Yeah.
If you do you ever defrost the veggies or just?
Great question. So for the vegetables, I wouldn't. I can just throw them directly in because they cook really fast, especially greens. If you want to, like you might save a minute of time, 2 minutes, right? Because those cold frozen vegetables will cool down your pot, but they cook pretty fast. If I wanted to use frozen fish, which you can absolutely use in this case as well, it will save you time if you do defrost it. You can put it in the fridge and let it defrost, and then use it as is, so that it's a little bit quicker. But yeah, great question. Absolutely.
One more.
Yeah, of course.
If I'm doing the seasonal vegetables and I do it myself, do I always have to blanch it before freeze it?
Oh, good question. So if this is for freezing purposes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're freezing vegetables, seasonal vegetables, and you're storing them sort of for the winter, blanching it is ideal because what it does is I can't remember the name, there's like an enzyme that continues to ripen that vegetable. So when you blanch it, it sort of stops that enzyme so it doesn't continue to ripen. Even though the freezer will slow it down, it will sort of stop it from continuing to sort of ripen and sort of discolor and oxidize. So that's always a good idea for storage. Also for anything with chlorophyll, so anything that's green, it sort of sets that color, it sort of sets that chlorophyll by blanching. And blanch, like honestly quick, like 30 seconds, if that, boiling water, ice bath, and then dry and you're ready to. But it's always good. You don't have to, but it just it helps with your veggies. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good questions. Very good questions. Okay, so you saw how we can get easily mixed up with unprocessed, minimally processed. So usually a processed food has required some commercial or industrial processing involved with it, and now it has certain parts of the vegetable or fruit, or in this case, the legumes removed, and it has additives in it. So what you want to do, usually a processed food might have about 2 or 3 ingredients. So the important thing about your processed food is, first of all, being choosy of what you're going to use that's processed and what you're going to use that's minimally processed, right? So we didn't have to use what I'm trying to think can. Yeah. So we're using fresh kale, and we have the fresh frozen fish.
Fresh fish.
Fresh fish.
Yeah.
And so then now we have the frozen. I created a new word. We have the cannellini.
We do it all.
I'm always creating new words. Okay. So, but when I look at the package, it says just the beans. I'm reading the French first. Just the white kidney beans. There's water. There is a little bit of salt in this, but it's the third ingredient. It's not the first, so there's not that much in it. You could also probably get it without the salt. And then he drained it before adding it into the dish. So there are ways of incorporating processed foods. And then the other thing is, this is a really important food for a well-balanced plant-based diet, right? So it has excellent protein for you. Probably, let's see here, 1/2 cup, 9 grams of protein, 9 grams of fiber. So this is a processed food we want to have in our diet.
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, question, yes.
Yes.
I'm wondering if all canned beans or all canned foods are created equal when we're choosing beans to be pragmatic, or sorry,
Yes.
Are there ways to minimize preservatives, or should we be more selective in terms of style of canning?
Good question. Good question.
You jump in and I can get.
Yeah. So I'll leave the style for Jeremy, and what I will talk about is more the ingredients and the nutrition facts table. So you can definitely compare to see which has more salt, which doesn't. The nutrition facts table on the back, if you look at the nutrition facts table and look at salt, it gives you the daily value. So the daily value, you want it to be 5% or less, to be a little amount. If it's more than that, then it's too much. So you can take 2 products and compare it that way. Jeremy?
Yeah, in terms of like the actual ingredient itself, most canned beans are cooked under high pressure, with high heat. They're going to be on the softer side. They're all pretty comparable. I mean, you might find a variety that has a little bit more texture than others. In terms of the seasoning itself, so like Danielle mentioned with the salt, some come with salt added, so you don't have to usually add extra seasoning, but you can sort of taste as you go, and then some don't. You can get salt-free ones, so in terms of varietals that way. If you need a bean for the dish to have a little bit more texture, and then the first thing that comes to mind is like falafel. It's, usually, and I've made falafel with canned chickpeas too, but, you're going to get a little bit more texture if you do use dried beans in that case, and then do the soaking process separately. So I would say from can to can, they're pretty similar. In terms of the can itself, I don't know if all of them are BPA free, but I think we're at that point.
We're at that point, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
in terms
they
of
don't
like the can
say.
itself, you can keep an eye. Some do say, but I think we're at that point where we're pretty good with the actual canned product. But otherwise from bean to bean, they're texturally, flavor wise, small differences, but they're pretty comparable.
Look, you don't include the can in the rest.
No, don't include the can. That is a good point. Just the ingredients in the can. Yes.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I'm not knocking using the actual dried beans. It's just, it takes a bit more time. So if you're short on time and energy, then using the canned beans is great. But you can have both in your pantry, and I do, you do,
Absolutely.
probably. So, and it just depends that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't eat the package from the dried
beans either. No, not one either. Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna take a little peek.
Ooh, beautiful.
I think we're good to go with our dish. And let me do a quick zoom in for those at home. Also, if you're at home watching and you have questions, please feel free to ask. All right, so the salmon looks absolutely beautiful.
Looks beautiful. You guys getting hungry in here?
And you can do a little test to see if it flakes apart, which it does easily, so you know it's good to go. And then what I like to do, and you can take your time plating this up fancily. Fancily? I'm making up words too.
Okay.
What I like to do is get the fish on the plate first.
I don't know. This might all be mine today.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes, there is. We have an audience, and they're going to want some.
I have a little bit of lemon juice at the end, and I'm adding it at the end just to keep that sort of freshness. I would lose that sort of bright flavor from the lemon juice if I added it during the cooking process. And you can cook this down. Like I would cook it down maybe a little bit more, but I'm still happy with this. We're going to just spoon the beans.
Yeah, see, I would have probably put that on the bottom, but that's why you're the chef and know about presentation.
There's no rules here. This is just how I like to present it. That was an audible agreement.
Yes, yes. Beautiful.
All right. And then if you have any fresh herbs, go at it with the fresh herbs. But again, this is very much comfort food, so do as you will.
Oh, it smells beautiful.
And that is, let's see if we can try this again. Almost.
Almost. There it is. Gorgeous.
Our salmon, lemon garlic beans. Or trout, lemon garlic beans.
Lemon garlic beans with trout. Or however you say it is going to taste good, right? So before we go to the third recipe, I have a little quiz for you guys. And
you can answer it if you're watching at home as well.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about ultra-processed foods. So I'm going to provide you with 3 foods, and I want you to tell me which one is the ultra-processed foods. Okay? So we have yogurt. We have almond milk, okay, or the plant beverage almond. And we have apple-flavored gummy bears.
Apple-flavored gummy bears.
Everybody agrees? Apple-flavored gummy bears? Okay. Actually, if we can put it back.
Camera.
There we go. Camera.
Shot one.
Okay. So, actually, all 3 of those fit into the ultra-processed category.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy? So when you hear news reports, you hear a lot of them saying, ultra-processed foods, avoid them, they're going to kill you. They get really amazing headlines out there. But not all ultra-processed foods are the same. And some people need ultra-processed foods. So for instance, gluten-free breads, they also fit under ultra-processed foods. But if you have celiac disease or if you have a gluten intolerance, you need that food in the diet. Plant-based beverages, like I just mentioned, almond milk. If you have a lactose intolerance or if you have a milk allergy, that's a great option to include in the diet. So we have to look at the type of ultra-processed food, and the ones that are probably the ones that are more increase the risk in our health or can increase cancer risk are the ones that are high in fat, salt, and sugar. So when you look at the research, I told you it's not clear cut in the research. When you look at the research and they're talking about ultra-processed foods are bad, are they specifically talking about the ones that are high in salt, fat, and sugar? Right? So that is where the research is now, and they're delving further into that. Deeper dive.
Love it. And actually, segueing from your comments, we do have a question online asking about good alternatives for like milks and dairies that are not as sort of preservative heavy or processed. So like a non-dairy alternative.
A non-dairy alternative.
That isn't as processed.
Yeah.
Talking about how the processing
So when you're looking at the non-dairy alternatives, it's going to be a little bit hard to find something that's not considered processed. But what we want you to do is go back and look at the label, right? Do you need that vanilla flavoring or chocolate flavoring to that plant beverage? Or can you buy the unsweetened, natural, and again, look at the number of additives that are there. It can get a little tricky
for sure.
Because you want it to be fortified with vitamin D and calcium because you want those nutrients, but you may not need the extra sugar that is often in a lot of the plant-based drinks.
Yes.
So look for that.
Yeah, and there is stabilizers, a lot of stabilizers in like us gums or thickeners. It's just to keep it sort of shelf stable.
Yeah.
You can go through the process of making your own. It isn't too difficult. We actually have, I think, a couple recipes on how to make almond milk and coconut milk. Just essentially water blending it with almonds or water blending it with oats if you want oat milk, and then straining it. But like the element, you're not getting those added sort of vitamins and minerals that you would use if you're not dairy. Right? Yeah.
So it's I guess the point we're trying to make is that it may not be so much the type of processing, but whether the additives they added to it. And then, is it a type of food that is a benefit to your diet, like a plant-based beverage, a gluten-free bread, a yogurt, is a benefit in the diet. But, not that I have a problem with high chews, but that is, not really going to benefit your diet. Yes?
So sorry, if you make your own yogurt at home and you are not adding it, so it doesn't consider any kind of ultra processed food because it's made at home and there is no additive. Am I right about that?
So you're still you're still processing it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right, you're in control. So it's not so much the processing, it's what you're adding to it, right? Yeah.
I think the takeaway too is how we think of the word process.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because it always has that negative connotation, but like Daniela mentioned, me chopping up an apple, I'm processing it. It is processed at that point, right? So it's more about what is added in, maybe that we want to keep an eye on. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the last recipe. We're going to finish off with something a little bit sweeter. This is our sort of dessert, maybe snack.
Oh, I didn't even see this.
No, no worries. I'll throw it to you.
No, you
yeah. Well, no, this is our pumpkin parfait, right? We're going into the season. It would be a shame if we didn't do anything pumpkin in October. So, and I know this is a little divisive. Pumpkin pie is my favorite pie.
Yes.
I know.
Apple pie is mine.
Yeah, most people. Right? So I'm sort of banished to my own can of pumpkin puree to do what I want with, and we're going to use it today. So we're going to make this really simple but really delicious dessert. You can have this as kind of like a breakfast sort of dish, right? Or snack. And we're using yogurt, right? Our ultra processed yogurt, which I love yogurt and I use it quite a bit. And this is just a plain Greek yogurt, so higher protein yogurt. We try to lean on the higher protein yogurts, especially if we're not getting enough protein, right? Skyr, which is the Icelandic version, or the Greek, are going to probably be your two highest you'll find in the grocery store.
Yeah, so if you have like a half cup of regular yogurt, has 4 grams of protein. If you go to Greek yogurt, it has 10. And then if you go to Skyr, it has 12. So it's pretty comparable, the Greek yogurt and the Skyr.
So I'm adding a cup of the yogurt, plain yogurt, to the food processor. You can do this by hand with a whisk, so you don't need a food processor. And if you want it a little lighter, a little fluffier, you can use a stand mixer that has the blades that sort of move together. But you can definitely do this by hand as well.
I'm going to look at all the labels today.
Yes, Danielle's analyzing labels. All right, so we're going with about a cup of the yogurt pumpkin puree, which you can find, it's probably on sale now. This is probably a good time to get your canned pumpkin puree. And look for it's the 100% pumpkin puree. So there should be nothing else in it, just the pumpkin puree. Don't get the pumpkin pie filling. It's delicious, but that has, sweetened, and it has other things in it as well.
I've made that mistake.
Yeah, so it is different. So look for just the pureed pumpkin. You can definitely roast your own, for sure. Maybe not after it's been carved.
Yeah, I was just thinking we're doing some pumpkin carving as part of cancer rehab and survivorship on the 28th, but I guess we won't be using.
No, not for our pumpkin puree. So about half a cup, and you can see I'm not really measuring this. You can go by eye. This is super easy, and if you like more pumpkin, go more pumpkin. You don't have to follow these ratios exactly. And then the last ingredient, this is optional, so I can just go yogurt and pumpkin here. But growing up, a lot of our desserts had ricotta cheese in it. Ricotta cheese adds this incredible richness, this really nice texture. We're also getting more protein.
We're getting more protein, and we're getting a different type of protein. We're getting whey. So we're getting the more casein with the yogurt, and we're getting more whey with, half the protein is whey in the ricotta.
So half a cup of the ricotta cheese. If you don't want to use ricotta cheese, just add the extra half a cup either from the yogurt or the pumpkin puree. Okay, so in total, you should have about 2 cups of your ingredients.
My mouth is already watering. Yes, Alona, you have a question.
What's the mg and processing? How is it related?
The milk fat?
Milk fat.
Oh, good question. So the milk fat is what's on the package, right? So if you want a lower fat, you're probably going to go with like a 1% or 0%. If you want higher fat, then you're going for like 3, 4, 5%, and that's the milk fat. And with processing, they do remove the fat. I'm not sure of the actual processing, but that's another reason why it's a more processed food as well. Do you know more about how?
Which one is more processed, the higher mg or?
Oh, which one's more processed? Huh. I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I would have to say it's pretty similar, but if
Yeah.
they're removing fat, then
they
the
put some-
lower.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit more.
Yeah. And then they have to replace it with something to keep it. Yeah. So it probably has a bit more there. You bring up a good question because I want to talk a little bit more about yogurt, but I'm going to see when it's a good time to do that.
Yeah, let me finish whipping this, keeping an eye on the time as well. So pumpkin puree, yogurt, ricotta cheese. We're going to add a little bit of maple syrup. So now we're in control, which is important, right? We're going to add a little bit of sweetness. You can add honey as well if you prefer. And I'm adding about a tablespoon, which is not too much, but have that nice little touch of sweetness. And then to contribute to that, you can add some spices, right? Cinnamon, I have some ginger, I have a little bit of nutmeg and clove, right? So these 4 together have the, love it or hate it, the pumpkin spice sort of category. You could just use cinnamon, just ginger, whatever you like. But what these spices do, there's nothing added to it, but it actually helps to enhance the sweetness as well, right? We think of cinnamon as something in desserts, maybe something tastes a little bit sweeter. On its own, there is nothing sweet about cinnamon, but when we add it to our dishes and ingredients, even if it has a little bit of sweetness already in it, it helps to enhance that flavor. I'm going to hold some back for a second, and that's pretty much it. We're going to go ahead and whip this. Again, if you're doing it by hand, just whip it until it's combined. If you're doing it with a stand mixer, same thing, whip it. It's going to be a little loud. Quick.
I probably would add some apple to that. Apple pumpkin.
And add applesauce.
Applesauce.
And maybe I'll stop it once just to scrape down the edges. And I want to let this whip so it comes together, but I'm also, as the blades turn, incorporating some air into it. And that air is going to make it really nice and really fluffy. So it's going to give it a texture that's a little lighter than like just yogurt on its own. As we wait. Any questions? Ponder any other questions maybe you might have.
Is there any? I'm looking like I can see it. Any comments about our response to the
No comment.
beverages?
It just
Okay.
people are saying they love the recipes and the
Great.
tips that you're sharing, but no other questions online. All right, so if you want it lighter, fluffier, just keep it going. Okay, more air is going to get incorporated into it, but we're essentially want this really sort of kind of mousse-like consistency. Beautiful, beautiful, which is
Gorgeous.
amazing on its own, right? And that's like essentially three main ingredients with a little bit of sweetness, maybe a little bit of spice in there. On its own,
Super
would be
nutrient
delicious.
dense, right? And then we have fiber too from the pumpkin puree, some vitamin A.
Yes.
Oh, look, more fiber.
Yeah. So that's our pumpkin sort of whipped yogurt ricotta pumpkin puree,
parfait.
which would be delicious on its own. We're gonna top it with a little granola. I love doing versions of this granola. We have probably 19 different recipes on our website of different styles, but it's always sort of the same process. So I have some oats, some pecans, and I even threw some pumpkin seeds in there as well. You can throw whatever nuts and seeds you want in there, and then those oats, that whole grain, right?
Whole grain oats too falls under ultra processed, but it has some good nutrition for us. So, yeah.
All right, a little bit of that extra spice, so I had some that cinnamon left over. We'll throw that in there, and then a little bit of the maple syrup. Again, for this amount, I probably need a tablespoon. So I'll put a tablespoon in there, a tablespoon in here, and you can make any sort of granola this way. Again, what's nice is you're in control of it. You can add what you like. And just mix it together. This is as hard as it gets to make a granola. Don't need any pots for this. I don't have to cook it at all. We're gonna bake it actually in the oven. And so I'm just mixing. I kind of did the maple syrup by eye. If you've seen one of our recipes before, you will know I don't really follow the instructions, but I'm tossing it until it's nice and glossy and shiny. If there's maple syrup pooling at the bottom, you've added too much, add more nuts and seeds or oats to kind of soak that up. And if it looks dry, then you can add a little bit more maple syrup and stir that through, okay? So I just want it nice and shiny and glossy onto a baking sheet lined with parchment, flattened it out. You don't have to be too fussy with it, just so it cooks evenly. And then into the oven, 350 degrees for about 15 to 18 minutes. Okay, that's sort of your range. What you are looking for.
Oh, there's the magic of collagen again.
We're ready. Is
Wow.
that
It even
sort
grew.
of, yeah, it grew as well. It may not expand at home. I don't know if you have one of those magic ovens, but let it. And so you're looking for that color, right? So in that 15 to 18 minute range, you want to cook it long enough so that the maple syrup sort of clusters everything together. And what you'll get is, let it cool first, but what you get is this sort of sheet. I'm trying to peel it off as I'm making a mess here, but you get this
Let me help you.
sort of sheet of your pumpkin seeds and your, how is it? There we go. Your pecans and your oats and your maple syrup. And you can just break it up into these clusters. This is awesome on its own. But if we're finishing this dish, which we will, I'm gonna take some of that whipped pumpkin.
Oh my god.
Again, if you want to like pipe it in with a piping bag, get all fancy, you can definitely do that. I am just spooning it in, tap the bottom to sort of flatten it out, and then take some of these pumpkin and pecan and
Oh my
oat
gosh.
shards.
Oh
On
my
top.
god. Perfect.
There we
Perfect.
go. We have our pumpkin parfait. Zoom in for the last. Nope.
Nope.
We're
is
all right. There we
There
are.
it is.
Our pumpkin puree with our little pecan granola on top. And we did it. We made
did
it.
We did it. Yes.
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 Awesome.
Well done, Chef.
Well done. Thank you, Daniela. So thank you, everyone. Did you have a couple more comments you wanted to touch on, right?
Yeah.
While we
Well,
wrap up.
quickly, I'll just, because I said I'd say something about yogurt. So, again, if you look at the gradient, sometimes you'll see it under processed food, sometimes ultra processed. Look at all the different types of yogurts out there. The fruit bottom yogurts, the ones that have fruit in it, that have a lot more sugar in it, that I'm going to say is at the higher level of ultra processed than something like this. So having this in the diet is okay. The other thing is fermentation is a process, and there's added bacterial cultures to this. But the added bacterial cultures also reduces the lactose content. So it makes this more digestible for someone who has issues with lactose. So I think what we want you to get from this is that not all processed foods are the same. We hope that you have a bit more of an understanding, but also knowing that nutritional science is not clear-cut, it's not black and white, and that every food fits in the diet. We just want a lot more of our unprocessed, minimally processed, but if you need some yogurt or if you need some applesauce, it's okay. But maybe 1 chew a month, maybe? Yeah. is okay too. Don't feel shamed if you incorporate them in the diet. They're also cheaper, and we know food costs are rising. We also know people have trouble with fatigue. So there are ways to incorporate it into the diet. And I think I said diet enough. So I'll stop preaching there.
Thank you, Daniela. And thank you for those watching at home. Again, reminder, every third Thursday, we are here, brand new class, brand new recipes, brand new nutrition tips and theme. Watching online as well. You can watch from home. If you would subscribe to our channel, that would be awesome. That would make us super happy. And it also, if you click the notification bell, it lets you know when we do have an upcoming live stream or live class. Our website is where we post all of our recipes. So if you're here today in person, we have a copy that you could take home.
Taste testers.
At home for those recipes, we post them usually the next day. It's on elixirkitchen.ca, which is where we have all of those recipes and the cooking videos from the class. Next month, third Thursday, November
14.
14.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love our audience, our group here.
Blue
14.
zones.
Yes, for Blue Zones.
Blue
We're
zones.
focusing on Blue
Yeah,
Zones.
yeah.
Super interesting. And we're going to have some delicious, tasty recipes for you as well. Thanks, everyone watching at home. Thanks, everyone here live.
Thank you.